All right, so what we're going to do here today is, this is the first of a three-part series on philosophy. What we're going to do is talk about why you need to have a philosophy, and then this one specifically going to address leadership. We're going to try to set a really sound foundation on a variety of leadership styles, resources, and information, and more importantly, to help set you up for the design of your philosophy in your portfolio. So let's get started. First off, why philosophy? Again, it's to help you make those difficult decisions. As you saw when we started to talk about that first leadership dilemma of individuality within a team sport or a team culture, you need to start to have a philosophy that you can go to and act as a guide as you make decisions. What is leadership? I'm going to try to give a lot of examples. If you're not familiar with who this is Pat Summitt, who is arguably one of the best, not only women's basketball coaches at the University of Tennessee, but one of the best coaches, role models, researcher, role model you could look at as you go forward. By definition, one of the things I like to do is you're going to come up with a definition, but a great place to start is just go right to the dictionary with a lot of these. I don't assume you know, or your athletes or people in your organization know. But again, leadership, there has to be followers. So it can be a team, it can be individuals. The leader provides a vision. I think that's my favorite way to talk about it, is when you're leading others in an organization, if you can provide a picture for them of where you're going, what you're doing, and why, that helps give clarity. And again, you've got to deliver results. So we'll talk a lot about defining what is success or excellence in your mind and in your leadership style. And then again, leadership with that vision is getting everyone within the organization to work towards a common goal. So having that vision, knowing what success and excellence is by definition for you and everyone in the organization, and then lastly, having that team work on that vision towards a common goal. Another way to look at leadership is transformational leadership. Again, it's a style of leadership where you create a vision to guide the change through inspiration. In other words, you reverse or flip things where you transform the power back to the members of the organization. This is a great leadership style, and in this day and age, probably more typical than it was when I was in sport 30, 40 years ago, but I'm old. Leaders as teachers, we talked about this right in the beginning. You have to decide, are leaders teachers? Are followers then the students? Or can you be both? The transformational leadership style would say you could be both. You have to decide what type you want to be and what type you think your followers want to be led by. Chuck Long, if you don't know who he is, I'm from Iowa originally, and he was the quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes back in the 80s, who lost the Heisman Trophy by the closest vote at that time, got second. But he has this quote, a good start, a chance for a good finish. The philosophy here and the leadership definitions and ethics that you're going to do in the design for philosophy is such an important part of your foundation for the whole portfolio. If you do a good job with this and spend a lot of time, you're going to have a good start, and then you have a chance for a good finish. Where I believe in the followers piece, these are my leaders. I'm the follower here, so these are my two girls. So they rule my life, a 6- and 4-year-old now. Amazing what power they have. Leadership. Again, a couple definitions here with leadership then is, it's not so much leading as having the people accept you. Again, having that respect, and we'll talk about a lot of values here, value terms. It's a great way to define leadership ethics and how you're going to apply some of those things. Another way is about building trust, and people talk about winning the hearts of people that you're going to lead. And again, the personality of the individual has to do this. When you design this, I want you to not just do your research and look at great role models and adapt their style into your own. I want you to use your own personality and find out ways to take bits and pieces of them to inject in there. How do our leaders earn respect then? We talked about trust. We've talked about a vision. Respect then, it's again being consistent, making sound decisions. A new thing now is about transparency, so the ability to admit mistakes. And then again, putting the best for the team ahead of what are your individual needs. Trust, when we get to that, the definition again, it's simple. It makes leadership possible, but again, it's about strength or truth of someone or something, faith or hope. I like this term, confident hope. I like that one with the definition for trust. What do leaders do? Again, we talked about this a bunch, but again, I believe vision is probably most important. And then we're going to talk a lot as the course goes on about creating a team culture. A lot of people would argue today that might be the most important thing, is the culture of your team. That'll help you endure good and bad times. And again, the way to do this, I talked about you have to come up with hows. How do you instill values? How do you inspire trust? And then we'll do a whole lecture on motivation to pursue those goals with a team. Another thing you're going to have to do as a leader is you're going to have to confront and resolve conflict. As I mentioned with the individuality versus team lecture, saying nothing means something. So if you don't take a position and confront it and try to resolve the conflict, they will go ahead and fill in the blanks for you. And then communication is going to be a key component in you being effective and being consistent. I hope you would pause the video now this time and look at just a quick, it's only about a minute and a half video interview of Vivian Stringer, who is the head women's basketball coach at Rutgers University. She was at Iowa, one of the all-time Hall of Famers right there with Pat Summit for women coaches, and it's powerful what she says. So pause and do that real quick. As we go now into team culture, as I said, probably one of the most important aspects in your leadership or philosophy is to look at how your team culture, and I love this definition, it's a social architecture that nurtures the team's psyche. It's if your team is healthy or not. Is it a positive team culture? And again, what team culture gets into is your reward system, how you communicate, whom you communicate with, kind of procedures, protocols. What are your acceptable reactions towards winning, losing, dress codes, all these things. You can think of a million different things from your own personal experiences. Some 6 components then of team culture would be team traditions. And what I'm talking about here is at one time, as an assistant coach, I was an offensive coordinator. I worked for 3 different head coaches with 3 different programs, 3 years in a row. And I found the importance of going into each situation, learning the history and the team's traditions that are unique to that culture. Each culture then too has its own basic operating procedures that they have started to normalize with. You have to understand what those are even if you don't agree what those are. Management information. This gets into your everyday workings of the organizations inside. Communication. Then again, the uniqueness or the nature of the sport changes some of the culture. 5th would be power influences, status structure of the team, cliques, those type of things, understanding what those are, what you want them to be. And then lastly, your leadership style as a coach will actually have a huge impact on the culture. Some leadership theories for resources. My background, besides coaching, was in outdoor leadership, outdoor education. And I love some of these models, but they talk about inspiring a shared vision, challenging the process. It's okay for people to ask questions, which in this day and age, I would argue that athletes and people in an organization business want to know why they're doing something before they buy in. 30 years ago, 40 years ago when I was a high school and college athlete, you were told what to do. It was a much more of a command style. And the third one would be enabling others to act. Another way to think about it is then modeling the way, or your role modeling. And then last would be to encourage the heart. That's creating that positive reinforcement, positive culture. The pattern of behavior that anyone can use to create extraordinary results is another way to think about ways to design quality culture. Last thing here is to think of leadership as a situational situational kind of atmosphere, or it varies based on the readiness of the team, and we'll get into those. So, some situational leadership styles then from Dr. Hershey is number one, and again, we can all think of these. Autocratic, or your commander style, that would be more of your general. The leader directs the team what to do, more of a controlling style, kind of an older military mindset. Do as you're told type of thing. A second one would be a democratic or a cooperative. This is that transformational style where the leader just kind of guides the team. And it's dynamic in that the team has a direct influence on the leader and the direction that the team is going to go. Last one then would be your laissez-faire, submissive type coach. And the leader makes very few decisions, lacking some accountability. Where this is very prevalent would be with your recreation leagues or youth leagues, and actually is a great way to allow creative flow and play, which maybe is more important than structure. Another one is kind of the new wave or a hybrid coach, where you're going to be a combination of all three. And you transform the power of the leadership to the team, and in return they transform that power back to you as a designated leader. It really allows for an emergent leader from the team to develop too, or leaders. And the concept here is everyone is a leader. Everyone has power or position. I would argue that Pat Summitt, that I showed the picture of earlier, went through that whole change of a very much a command style, but as you'll see with some videos here, was very much a hybrid coach at the end of her career, where the power is transformed back. So again, pause here. This is a good video. Look at old school or hybrid type role models or examples of situational leaders. This is a clinic now I want you to do, and it's kind of a fun one, but just brainstorm real quick on naming different examples of the different coaches. A lot of times we're going to go back when we use clinics, you're going to go back to your own personal experiences or opponents, coaches and styles you saw there. What's fun to do though is look at movies, and whether they're true or not, it's kind of fun because it shows some real strong weaknesses or strengths. List what the strengths and weaknesses are of the different styles, so try to list them, one of those three: commander, democratic, or laissez-faire, and then look at the strengths and weaknesses and give concrete examples of those, and think about then what you can learn from those. And then after you've done that, try to write your first definition of leadership, what that is for you. Again, you're going to use this in your first philosophy assignment, and then in your second assignment, you'll look at it again in more detail. So go ahead and do that clinic real quick. Again, just jot down some notes. I put them on your laptop so they're there, and it'll give you that good foundation as you start to do your assignments. To give you some examples, again, you don't have to do this, but I always get asked, what's my definition? And I kind of use the 5 E's, where you're going to empower, engage everyone. It's that transformational style. The focus here is I want, though, the team to evolve. I want me to evolve as a leader. And then we would be striving, our goal would be striving for excellence versus wins, losses, and so forth. So the 5 E's. When we get into team readiness, this is an important thing to understand, and it's pretty consistent with almost any group you're part of. And think about ones you've been with or you are now, and you can see that this happens quite often. There's 4 stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing. Each group's going to go through these different stages. Some will stay longer in one than another. Some may never get to the 4th stage. But obviously, the quicker we can get to the norming and performing phase, the more successful your program's going to be, most likely. Again, the reason we're pointing it out is you want to be aware of where your group is in these stages, and then you do a better job of addressing their needs. Another way to look at it is you go ahead and form, and when you're in these, this is again where you can use this situational leadership styles. When the group's just forming, it's more common to use a lot more autocratic or commander style, because you just have to give some direction to set a foundation. Then as you start to go to the storming phase, meaning there's going to be conflict, then you've got to, again, think about your own style. You can stay commando, or you can become more of a cooperative or laissez-faire and let people work through it. Eventually, though, you'll normalize, and that's where the power can transform to where you're performing at such a high level that you can be, maybe the best thing to do is to stand back and let the organization run itself. So, 3 major objectives you need to address as a leader then in your philosophy is, first, what is winning, or what is success, or how do you define your quest for excellence? You have to address also how you're going to have fun. I would argue, regardless of the organization, if you're not enjoying the experience, at some time it's going to blow up even if you're highly successful. It's just a matter of time. So you have to come up with some concrete objectives and ways for your organization to actually enjoy what they're doing. Third, you have to help people develop. Most of our teams and groups we're working with here, we're going to be working with young people. You have to address all 3 areas individually, looking at them, what is their physical development, looking at them psychologically, and then also their social. So again, this is kind of your vision for success, and it's going to be part of your first philosophy. Those are 3 different things you have to address, and remember, with development, there's 3 components to it that you have to address. When we get into definitions of winning, again, you get to achieve a victory in a contest, and this is the definition for kids, effort or fortune, and then obviously a battle, but example is winning a championship. Successful means you're going to have the correct or desired result, or the ending in success. Excellence, extremely high quality. So, another way to think about when you get into addressing winning is success versus excellence. This is a quote from Joe Paterno. Excellence is something that is lasting and dependable and largely within a person's control. Success is perishable and is often outside of our control. The person that is fascinated by quality is excited when he sees it in others. So again, you can see Joe Paterno, one of the things, if you're not familiar, but he always talked about excellence versus success or winning. Some definitions of fun real quick. It's an enjoyable experience, something you'd like to do. Real important here, because we're dealing with young people, and we'll get into this legal duties. You have to provide a safe environment, not put anyone in danger. It's interesting or enjoyable. And then opportunity is huge. It's a improvement or advancement or progress is a great motivator. When we get into development, physically, we're looking at developing good health habits. Most of you are going to just start to talk about fitness training and so forth to develop physical. We want to look at how can we create a safe learning environment that would continue on the rest of their lives. Psychologically, you're talking about controlling emotions. You're talking about developing feelings of self-worth, which you'll see is a key component in motivation. And then socially, being able to be cooperative in a competitive context and appropriate standards of behavior. Again, legal duties, safety first. Those are things we're thinking about. Some great resources here is ASEP, American Sport Education Program, so you can just pop that up on the internet. It has some incredible design philosophies for you, and again, is a big proponent within the coaching field. Thing you want to think about here too is, what are you going to emphasize? Is it going to be more of a recreational sport where fun is the priority, learning and participation, or is your organization or your sport or your level more of a competitive standpoint where winning is important, a little more important, performance, and then participation is by the best? Think about ways you can develop and assess these type of objectives and what's important to your particular team at your level, and talk about what those are. Again, excellence, quest for, or success. So again, this helps you start to design the direction for your program. Some society objectives, obviously, society values winning versus development. So what's your emphasis going to be? And you need to talk about that. Again, there are some common sense things that are tied into our society norms here by the level you're at. You want to think again, another way is think of the product is winning is a short-term goal, but the process is striving towards a winner, that quest for excellence. Again, question 1, what is your long-term goals for your organization? You're doing this for 1 calendar year. So look at what is your long-term goals, but then also what is your program's emphasis for that 1 year. Are they compatible or conflicting? If they're compatible, great. If they're conflicting, you need to rework them a little bit. So, again, this gives us a foundation, hopefully a ton of resources for the design of leadership for your portfolio, which we'll talk about in part 3. Thanks.